be covering trees and how to draw trees. And before we start with the drawing, there are two different types of trees, which you can see on the left side of the screen here. The left tree, the willow oak, is a deciduous tree, and the western red cedar on the right side is a conifer tree. And put very simply, the conifer tree is an evergreen tree. It has needles. Those needles stay on the tree year round. And the tree has kind of a cone shape, or a conifer shape. And the seeds are often cones, like pine cones. Deciduous trees are trees that lose their leaves in the winter, and the leaves turn colors in the fall. And besides the biological differences of these trees, in terms of drawing these trees, there's the structural aspects of the tree are very different from each other. Before I get into that, and before I start drawing, if you're at home, you should draw with a pencil, and hopefully you have a drawing pencil of some kind. A number 2 pencil will work fine. Just don't use a mechanical pencil for this. And if you're in school, we're going to be using these graphite sticks. And so they're basically like a pencil lead without the pencil. So I'm going to use the stick since it's an unfamiliar drawing implement. So let's start with we'll start with drawing the outside shapes of the tree, and then we'll get into the shading. So the deciduous trees have a crown and a trunk, and you can see that in the photo on the left, that the crown takes up the majority of the structure. Probably in this case about, say, 5/6 or 7/8 overall of the structure. So if this area here would be the crown, and then this area here would be the trunk. And the conifer trees, it varies. It really depends on how much light gets to the bottom of the tree, and whether those bottom trunks actually, or bottom branches actually have needles or not. But it could be anywhere from completely covered from the tip to the roots, to the ground of needles, or sometimes you just see the very top. But anyway, in this photo, we have the entire tree is all branches, and you don't see the trunk at all. With the conifer tree, like I said, you have this sort of cone shape, or triangle or cone shape of the tree, and so and the branches all come off of a central trunk, and they all come off perpendicularly or horizontally to the trunk. So keeping that information in mind, we can start to kind of sketch out the basic shapes of the tree here on the outer contours. And you can see that I'm just kind of being really, really loose with the contours and the marks. And I'm keeping in mind that what I'm seeing are the ends of these branches that are covered with needles and are coming sideways out from a central trunk, which I can't see in this particular image, but I know that it's there. And then the next part of the challenge is to create some shading. And with any trees, the shading is going to be along the bottom of the branches, or the underside of the branches. And so in this case, you can see that the sections of branches have some shading underneath them. And this is where the graphite stick comes in really handy, because you can sort of turn your graphite stick sideways, and you can just start making some really kind of large, sweeping kind of back and forth marks like this, and you can very easily build up some texture and some shading. And you don't really have to be specific with this at all, which is nice. If I'm using the pencil, I'm turn the pencil on its side and shade on the side of the pencil like this, in order to show that that shading is underneath. Okay, and really the trick with drawing these trees is that less is more here. The fewer marks you make, the better it actually looks. You just have to know where to put those marks. All right, so that's the conifer tree. And then next is the deciduous tree. And here, I'll label these parts here. So this is the crown. This is the trunk. And with the conifer, it's just all crown in this case. The whole thing is a crown. I left the deciduous tree until the second drawing because the deciduous trees are usually, I find, more difficult to draw. But the main thing is to really separate your tree into these specific sections. And you don't have to label the page like I did, but I'm just doing it for the demo. So I'm going to actually draw the crown first, and I'm going to draw just kind of a basic kind of outline. Again, keeping it pretty loose. All right. And then I'm using my proportion guide on the right to kind of help me stay, in the right proportional ballpark. And then the trunk is just a little kind of stump like that. Make sure that you kind of, flange it out at the bottom here so that it starts to suggest where the roots go. And obviously every tree and every image is going to look a little different, and you have to be specific for each one. All right, in this image, the light is coming from the left side, and so the shading is all on the right side of the tree. I'm just going to stay kind of with the same strategy that we did before, and I'm going to shade on the underside of these branches. And this time, instead of going in like a sort of a sewing needle or sewing machine sort of back and forth the way I did with the conifer tree, I'm going to go in like little circles. So you can see I'm just doing like little kind of circles, little sections of circles, and that shows or is supposed to suggest groupings of leaves. You can even get the charcoal stick more on its side and add more shading, some kind of rough shading. So you can see, again, less is more. The less specific you are with your contour lines or your edges, the better it looks, because you don't draw every little leaf or you don't draw every needle. You draw them in sections. In this particular image, it shows that you can see some of the trunk and the crown coming through the leaves. And so if you want to try that, pick a section to try that with, and just pick a little area, and you can like draw the suggestion of a limb. It helps if you kind of show that it's connected to something, so that the viewer can understand that you're trying to show the structure. And remember, with deciduous trees, the branches branch out, right? And they do it at all different angles, unlike the conifer tree, the conifer tree is all built around vertical trunk and horizontal branches, whereas the deciduous tree, the branches go in many different directions, right? The way you see them in the wintertime, the skeleton of the tree that you see in the wintertime. So, just keep that in mind as you draw. Again, don't be too specific. The more specific you are, the more it starts to look really mechanical and looks like you, are trying to build trying to build the tree one leaf at a time. You don't really want to do that. It's just going to not look right, for lack of a better explanation. The more sort of loose you are, the better it tends to look. So there is my deciduous tree. All right, hope you enjoyed this demo, and give it a try.